In terms of the fourth quarter, they had all but one of their buckets was inside the paint. Was that them just being able to get into the paint and get whatever they want because of that point of attack defense like you were talking about?
Yeah, they had that and 9 free throws.
The Indiana Fever were on a roll. They had just dominated Paige Buchers and the Dallas Wings, outplayed the Minnesota Lynx to win their first Commissioner's Cup championship, and convincingly defeated Aja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces. 3 straight wins, momentum was clearly building. Everyone expected them to handle the Los Angeles Sparks easily, even without Caitlin Clark. The Sparks are one of the worst teams in the WNBA. But what happened next was infuriating. The referees made calls so questionable that Stephanie White could only say 5 words that summed up everything wrong with the league. What do you think about the WNBA officiating? Let us know in the comments below.
Should have won this game. There was inconsistencies in the officiating. Wait until you see the second half. And I have everything.
The Fever entered the game without their biggest star, and no one expected what would happen next. Caitlin Clark was sidelined with a left groin injury, marking her 5th consecutive game on the bench. The team's entire offensive rhythm relies on Clark's playmaking ability. Without her court vision and scoring threat, the Fever looked like a completely different team.
Finding out this morning that we probably need to hold out again today. It really is a day-to-day thing. And I think for us, making sure that we're prioritizing her long-term health and wellness. It's anybody who's had some of these types of injuries understand that sometimes it's a process. She's a quick healer, and she's been doing everything that she can to get back on the floor. So, we just want to make sure that we're hypersensitive to the big picture.
But that wasn't all. Dearest Dantas was representing her country in the FIBA AmeriCup, and her absence forced the Fever to adjust their rotations. The team lost a key contributor who brought size and experience off the bench. Then came the shocking news. Dana Bonner had quit the team entirely. 3 major pieces gone and one devastating blow. Despite being this short-handed, the Fever were still heavy favorites. ESPN's matchup predictor gave them a 72.9% chance of victory, and MGM had them favored by 6.5 points. Everyone expected the remaining talent to carry them through the game with ease. The logic was simple. The Sparks are one of the worst teams in the WNBA and have struggled all season. The Fever were coming off an impressive 3-game winning streak. Aaliyah Boston was playing phenomenal basketball, and Kelsey Mitchell was stepping up as a leader. The team's chemistry looked strong. During their recent dominant performances,
Howard looking backdoor for Mitchell. Not there. Shot clock down to 7. McDonald feed inside, and it's Howard for 2. It's good.
But something was brewing beneath the surface. Without Clark, the Fever's pace had slowed dramatically. The ball movement lacked its usual energy, and Boston wasn't getting enough touches to dominate in the paint as she typically does. An offensive system that had worked so well with Clark at the helm began to break down. The Fever still had multiple all-star caliber players, while the Sparks were struggling just to stay competitive most nights. How could Indiana possibly lose this game?
I don't get it. Breanna Stewart, Aja Wilson. Wait until you see what they did for Kelsey Plum tonight. They get all the calls. Touch fouls, anything. And guess what happens? Aaliyah Boston, the best center in the game. And guess what happens to her? She gets called for every touch foul and ends up in foul trouble this entire season and is still putting up MVP type numbers. What happens with Caitlin Clark? Have you ever seen her get a touch foul? A phantom call? No. The physicality, that's the WNBA when it comes to Caitlin Clark. But anybody else, the physicality disappears. And it's foul after foul.
Expectations were sky high. Everyone believed raw talent would make up for the missing pieces. The Fever had already proven they could win big games and still had championship-level players on the court. The Sparks were expected to be easy prey for a team with Indiana's remaining firepower, but this perfect storm of absences created the exact conditions for disaster. The team chemistry that had looked so strong during their winning streak was built around Clark's leadership. Without her organizing the offense, cracks began to appear. Role players who had thrived in clearly defined roles were suddenly asked to do more. As the game began, the pressure mounted with all these handicaps weighing them down.
What does it take to get a team to be more consistent, especially from you on the coaching side of things?
Yeah, I think a couple things. There's always got to be a high attention to knowing personnel. Oftentimes you don't get a lot of practice time, and so going over a lot of their sets, which you do. But at the end of the day, making sure we know our personnel, who we're going to run off the 3-point line, what we're willing to give up, We've got to make sure that there's a high attention to detail.
Even as the team struggled, 3 players refused to let the Fever go down without a fight. Aaliyah Boston dominated the paint all night, finishing with 23 points and 12 rebounds. In what should have been a winning performance, she shot 9-0-17 from the field and sank 5 of her 7 free throw attempts. When it mattered most, Boston finally got the ball and she showed everyone why she's such a special player.
Here's Mitchell off the screen, but can't connect on the 3. Boston offensive rebound, rolls it in and a foul. The 2 bigs bring the ball up the floor, and Hamby wasn't ready for that.
How about that change of pace? That burst like a guard gets downhill to the rim.
Kelsey Mitchell stepped up in a big way in Clark's absence. She poured in 19 points and knocked down 3 crucial three-pointers when the team needed scoring the most. Mitchell also reached a major milestone, playing in her 251st game for the Fever, second only to Tamika Catchings in franchise history. Her leadership was evident throughout the game, as she helped keep the Fever competitive against a team they were expected to beat handily.
Lob inside. Boston too far underneath. Shot clock down to 5. Kick out Mitchell. Oh, yes!
But that's not all. Natasha Howard brought her veteran presence and lit up the scoreboard. She finished with 21 points and 9 rebounds, coming just shy of a double-double. Howard was remarkably efficient, shooting a tough 11 from the field, including 1 of 2 from beyond the arc, and converting 4 of 6 free throws. Her scoring was crucial on both ends of the court, providing the steady impact the team needed.
Busted them all up. We went to the same high school.
Howard left alone. Answers with a 3.
These 3 players carried the team on their backs, delivering championship-level performances against an opponent that was expected to crumble under pressure. Boston commanded the paint like the all-star she is. Mitchell hit clutch shots that kept the Fever within striking distance. Howard used her veteran savvy to make plays. Younger players simply don't. Picture it. Boston was dominating inside. Mitchell was knocking down shots from all over the court. Howard was making the kind of poised, high-IQ plays that kept hope alive. The comeback felt inevitable. The crowd could feel it building. The momentum was shifting. Indiana was right on the edge of turning the game around.
LA is so dangerous. They don't look like a 5-win team to me.
Oh, and there's Timpson sending it back.
Here's where things get interesting. Despite the individual brilliance on display, it was all being overshadowed by some truly questionable officiating. Call after call went against the Fever, disrupting their momentum and frustrating both players and fans. One of the most glaring moments came when Sophie Cunningham was grabbed by the neck with no foul called. Incredibly, the referees awarded a jump ball instead.
This is what I was talking about with Sophie Cunningham. Look at this. She literally grabbed her around her neck, and they called this a jump ball, and then threw her down the next play.
The controversial calls continued to pile up in the final minutes, right when the game was hanging in the balance. You could see the frustration mounting on the court. These players were leaving everything out there. Boston was performing at an elite level. Mitchell was knocking down shots that should have sealed the win. Howard was making the kind of poised, experienced plays you expect from a champion. But time and again, the referees made calls that stripped the Fever of their momentum. And their chances?
And then Aaliyah Boston, like I said, she didn't touch her. They put her in foul trouble all season long. They're just calling stuff to call stuff. The refs made this game about them. Aaliyah Boston, again, she's an all-star player. Look at these hits. Good thing Caitlin Clark didn't play because it was just a sloppy basketball game between the officials and the Los Angeles Sparks. Look at this. They called this a foul instead of a block. And then there's Aaliyah Boston again. That's 3 fouls where she didn't touch anybody. And that's our best player and wonder why we lose this game. Michaela Timpson, watch these 2 calls in a row. She didn't do anything. She got hit on that one, and they called a foul on her.
Even their heroic efforts weren't enough to overcome the string of controversial calls that ultimately decided the game. The heartbreak was written on every player's face as they watched a winnable game slip away lost, not through lack of effort or execution, but because of factors completely beyond their control.
This is 4th quarter. Look at this. This one pissed me off. Kelsey Plum seriously elbows Lexi Hall, then purposely steps over so she couldn't get up. Lexi Hall can't believe it. That's a foul. The ref was right there in front of her. And then here we go. And they kept McDonald in foul trouble the entire game. There's 2 in a row where she didn't do anything. Look at that. Just had her arms in the air, but this is the 4th quarter. And they just kept giving every single call. I like Leah Boston finally getting pissed off. Then they call this away from the ball in the 4th quarter. Nothing going on. Just to put him at the line, and then Kelsey Plum another one. But when Howard drives and gets slashed across the face, no foul, just out of bounds.
After watching her team battle fiercely, only to lose in heartbreaking fashion, Stephanie White finally stepped to the podium. The post-game press conference was tense. Frustration was written all over her face. She had just watched her players leave everything on the court, Boston dominating inside, Mitchell hitting clutch shots, Howard making veteran plays, yet it still wasn't enough. Reporters waited quietly for her response. White is known for her composure and professionalism, always choosing her words with care, but this time felt different. This loss stung. The Fever had just fallen to one of the league's worst teams a game. They were expected to win handily.
In terms of the 4th quarter, they had all but one of their buckets was inside the paint. Was that them just being able to get into the paint, get whatever they want because of that point of attack defense like you were talking about?
Yeah, they had that and 9 free throws.
Here's where it got truly telling. Stephanie White delivered her response in just 5 powerful words. We didn't get the calls. That was it. 5 words that summed up everything that went wrong in those final chaotic minutes. The frustration was unmistakable. The disappointment, undeniable. White had just watched her team get robbed of a win they had earned on effort, execution, and heart. Now let's talk about the specific calls that turned the game. Sophie Cunningham was grabbed by the neck, and instead of a foul, the officials inexplicably called a jump ball. That's not basketball. That's blatant favoritism toward the Sparks. Meanwhile, Aaliyah Boston kept getting whistled for soft touch fouls, while the Sparks were allowed to play far more physically without penalty. The double standard was obvious to anyone watching, and it wasn't just frustrating, it was game-changing.
I mean, look, there are going to be days where you make shots and miss shots. I mean, that's part of it. That's why I thought, AB had a really good look at the end. And so sometimes it just doesn't fall your way. So we're looking more about execution. I didn't feel like our execution was all that good. At the end, I felt like in our reset timeout, it wasn't very good either. And, that's on us continuing to make sure that we are going over that, as often as possible when we have our practice time and making sure that we're sharp in those areas.
White's statement captured the anger and disappointment of every Fever fan. In just 5 words, she spoke for everyone who had watched that game. Fans were shouting at their televisions, outraged by the same calls that had clearly shifted the outcome. White gave voice to that frustration. She said exactly what everyone was thinking, but this moment was about more than just a single game. It tied into a larger story, the Fever battling through unfair odds. They're missing their best player. They're navigating injuries, lineup changes, and now, questionable officiating. The obstacles keep piling up. And yet, here's the amazing part. This loss proved just how much talent and potential this team has. They nearly beat the Sparks despite everything stacked against them. Boston played at an all-star level. Mitchell rose as a leader. Howard brought the calm, steady presence of a veteran. The core is there. The foundation is strong. This heartbreaking defeat will become fuel. When Clark returns and the team gets healthy, this group won't just bounce back, they'll be stronger for it. White's 5 words were more than a reaction. They were a message. This team refuses to accept unfair treatment. They're building championship character, one challenge at a time.
Here is Boston on a handoff to Cunningham. Head full of steam to the rim. And a foul. Cunningham and 1.
I mean, this is just a really good screen by Boston to give her a step. The switch. Sophie's having a good time.
This devastating loss actually reveals something incredible about the Fever's championship potential. Think about what just happened. The Fever were missing 3 key players and still nearly beat a team they were expected to dominate. That's not a sign of weakness, that's pure strength under pressure. Here's where it gets interesting. Missing Clark, Dantas, and Bonner should have been a death sentence against any WNBA team. Yet the Fever stayed competitive for the full 40 minutes. And now, help is on the way. Clark's return is right around the corner. She's been participating in drills and has been a steady presence on the bench during games. Coach White is wisely prioritizing her long-term health. But there's a real chance Clark could be back as early as Wednesday against the Golden State Valkyries. Now picture this lineup with her back. Clark running the offense, Boston dominating the paint, Mitchell delivering clutch scoring, Hall injecting energy in defense, and Howard anchoring the floor with her veteran presence. That's not just a good team, that's a championship roster in the making.
Cunningham, Colson, give and go. And Coulson hits a three.
That's called a boomerang pass.
But that's not all. This young core has been battle-tested under the toughest possible circumstances. Boston has proven she can carry a team when it counts. Mitchell has stepped up as a true leader in Clark's absence, averaging 21.6 points. Over the 5 games she missed, these players aren't just surviving without their star, they're evolving into championship-caliber contributors. Now, let's talk about what 2025 could look like. Right now, they're building the chemistry and experience that will pay massive dividends next season. Every tough loss teaches them something new. Every close game builds their confidence. Every milestone reflects individual growth. Mitchell hitting 600 career three-pointers, Howard surpassing 2,000 rebounds, and Boston solidifying herself as a consistent all-star presence. The foundation is being laid, one game at a time.
Percent comes up with the block. Coulson launch ahead. Oh, a la Caitlin Clark.
The schedule ahead gives the Fever every opportunity to prove their strength matchups against Golden State, Atlanta, Dallas, Connecticut, and New York. These are the kinds of tests that forge championship teams. And when Clark returns, this battle group will be ready to dominate. Here's the amazing part. Teams that beat the Fever while they were down better watch out. The Sparks got them twice. Other teams took advantage of their injuries and shifting roster. But once this team is healthy, they're going to remember every slight, every bad call. Every tough loss, every moment they were kicked while they were down. This adversity is building championship character. The frustration is fueling their hunger. The pain is forging the kind of mental toughness that carries teams through playoff battles. This heartbreaking loss doesn't expose weakness, it proves just how strong the Fever will be when fully healthy. Stay loyal to this team. Clark's return is coming soon, and the Fever are still projected to be a playoff contender with the potential to secure a top 4 seed. This young core has been through the fire, and when they come out the other side, the league better be ready. Picture the revenge tour. They're not just fighting back, they're building something special. Let us know in the comments what you think of the WNBA officiating. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, so you never miss a moment. Click the video on screen, and we'll see you in the next one.